Hello, Patriots. I'm Lee Watts, and this is Patriot Point, your source for Kentucky news and analysis from a conservative, Christian, and common sense point of view. Well, this week we'll be looking at how your old Kentucky home could be in jeopardy of having the government take it. Yes, this could happen two different ways. First of all, through some property tax laws here in the Commonwealth, and second, through the power that Governor Andy Beshear has. He can literally seize and sell your home without your permission. We'll be covering both of these things. Let's first of all talk about property tax laws here in Kentucky and what needs to change immediately. This week, there are initiatives going on in both Texas and Florida to eliminate property tax. And this is something Kentucky definitely needs to get in line with. Property tax means you don't own your land, the government owns it, and you must rent it. And if you ever stop paying that rent, they will seize your home. This is what Florida Governor Ron DeSantis said this week about eliminating property tax in Florida. You should own your own home free and clear. To say someone who's been in their home 35 years has to keep ponying up money, you don't own your home if that's the case. Yes, Governor DeSantis is pushing right now in Florida to eliminate property tax. And he's absolutely correct. It's crazy to think that you buy your home, you have to pay taxes when you buy it, you work and for 30 years paying off the mortgage, paying property tax the entire time, and then when you retire, government comes out, assesses your property at being a higher value, you have to pay higher taxes, you can't. So the government takes your land that you have bought and paid for all of these years. I'll give you one real account that happened over here recently in Pikeville, Kentucky. This family had lived in their home for 4 generations, and then they had unpaid property taxes amounting to a whopping $642. But because of different fines and fees and late charges, that ballooned up to more than 7 times the amount they actually owned. They lost their home. The government took it for unpaid property taxes. Now, some people are under the impression, well, we've always had property tax. That is incorrect. The United States has not always had property tax because it's one of the things the Founding Fathers were very much against, because otherwise the government owns all of the land and owns your home. Notice what some of the Founding Fathers said about this. Thomas Jefferson, primary author of the Declaration of Independence, said, "Nothing is ours which another may deprive us of." So if the government can actually take your home, then it's not actually yours through the taxes, it's actually theirs. George Washington had similar ideas. He said, "Freedom and property rights are inseparable. You can't have the one without the other. If I don't have the right to my own property, then we are losing our freedoms." We see here the words from John Adams. He served as vice president under Washington, and then he became the second president. He said, "Property must be secured or liberty cannot exist. In a state where the government can take your property, you're not going to be living in a free country." Here are the words of John Jay, one of our founding fathers and the very first Supreme Court Chief Justice in American history. He said, "No power on the earth has a right to take our property from us without our consent." And of course, this also follows in a biblical principle. You'll see this principle in the book of Ezekiel, chapter 46, verse 18, which says, "Moreover, the prince," that's referring to the government official, "moreover, the prince shall not take of the people's inheritance by oppression, to thrust them out of their possession." So it's here, hey, the government doesn't have the right to take the people's land and thrust them out of their own property here. It violates principles we see not only in the Bible, but also in the Founding Fathers, the way America was originally set up. And property taxes varies from different types of taxes. For instance, with income tax, the more income you make, the more you got to pay, but you actually have the income. Or even with the consumption-based tax, if you buy something, you pay the taxes on it originally. It's not like you go to Best Buy, buy a TV, and then have to keep paying for it for the next 30 years. And houses ought to be the same way. Property tax is indiscriminate. Doesn't matter how much you are making or what you're actually doing nowadays, and they can increase the property taxes they're charging when you're not actually making money on the property in the home that you live in anyway. Some people think, well, as long as this doesn't affect me, I'm not too worried about it. Anytime we have an injustice affecting any American, it really affects the liberty of us all and will only be expanded. Some people have this idea, well, the schools need the money from the property tax. This is a common misconception. Let me explain why it is a misconception. According to the Kentucky Office of Educational Accountability, since 1995, the bureaucracy, expenses, and staff in Kentucky's Department of Education has increased more than 47%. Now, has the number of teachers increased that much? No. Has teachers' salary increased like that? No. Have we got better test scores, better results out of the schools? No. What has happened is that nearly half of their budget's been increasing, and it's going to what? A bunch of bureaucrats and administrative staff. Not going to the kids, not going to the teachers, and it's sure not going to the results. So the money is there. It's just being used for all this bureaucracy that we need to get rid of. It's just like President Ronald Reagan said. It's not that the government taxes too little. It's that it spends too much. It's a bunch of conservative Republicans, I believe, are the ones who watch Patriot Point. Do we actually believe what President Reagan is saying? Let's actually apply that. Let's get rid of the property tax. Now let's talk about the second way that the Kentucky government can take your home. And it's really more egregious, if you can believe that. Back in the year 2020, the governor of Kentucky went crazy, Andy Beshear, with all this power and decrees and declaring an emergency and having all this authority. Well, because he had gone a little bit nutso, the Kentucky State Legislature the following year said, we are going to alter the emergency powers that a governor has because this guy's just gone nuts and we don't want anybody to have this power. However, they didn't actually change the power the governor has. Still has all the problems that we had to begin with. I called the legislature out for this in 2021. Much of them did not appreciate it, so I'm going to do it again. Here is the problem with the law and what the legislature failed to do. This is Kentucky Law KRS 39A.100. Notice how the governor can take your property. This is Kentucky Revised Statute 39A.100, paragraph C. You'll notice it says, during an emergency, which the governor to declare on his own, and nobody can do squat about it for a 30-day period, that he can seize, take, or condemn property for the duration of the emergency. Remember, he can do this for 30 days with no one's authority but his own. He can seize your property. He can also take all means of transportation and communication. He can take your property, your home, your phones, your cars, everything. He can take all of your fuel. He can take all your food, clothing, equipment, material, medicines, and supplies. And then what can he do with this? He can sell it, lend it, give it away, or distribute any of the property under this paragraph, but he has to pay you for it. At first, the law said the governor can do this during the duration of the emergency. However, the legislature in 2021 said, no, if it goes longer than 30 days, then the emergency must be approved by the state legislature. And if they think there is one, the governor still has all these authorities. He shouldn't have this authority to take your home, your car, and everything you ever had for 30 days. He shouldn't have this power for 30 minutes. I had one fool of a legislator call me up and say, the law doesn't actually say that. And I said, well, one of us can't read. For some reason, he didn't appreciate that. But this is what the law says. I put a link in the description of this video where you can look it up for yourself. So if Andy Beshear declares an emergency for any reason he wants for 30 days with no one having a say in it, he can literally, under Kentucky law, take your home and sell it. Of course, he does have to pay you for it. Maybe I didn't want to sell my home or my car or all of my clothing or anything else that you possibly own. These are two different ways. Through property tax and the governor's emergency powers, you can literally lose your old Kentucky home. So these are some problems that Kentucky has in its law currently, something that needs to be changed as early as day one of the next legislative session. We need to start having talks about eliminating property tax and taking away this authority from the governor to take your home for any amount of time. If there's ever a situation where the government says, we need your house, we need your car, we need your clothing, we need your phone, then they've already proven themselves too completely incompetent to handle any kind of emergency. Why should they have the authority to take the people's resources in this? If you'd like to contact your state legislator about either of these issues, here's the phone number to call the Kentucky Capitol Message Center. It is 1-800-372-7181. This is the number for the Message Center at the Capitol. Let them know you'd like to leave a message for your legislator. And as I always say, be brief, be courteous, and ask them to contact you back with what they will be doing. And that's something to keep in mind when it comes up to election time. That's some of the issues that are facing our Commonwealth and nation today. So until next week, Patriots, I'm Lee Watts for Patriot Point, reminding you that liberty is not a spectator sport.